I've walked this path 1,000 times, and now it's her turn. You know what I'm doing here? I'm creating memories that I can look back on in 20 years. That's important to me. And the fact that I can take such a small setup, like the Zhiyun Crane M3S and the Sony ZV-E1, and I don't even feel it in my backpack, is huge to me. It means I can capture all these memories in Hollywood-style shots that would be impossible to capture by hand. Children, my daughter Mia, my son Oscar, they are the meaning of life. And that meaning, I'm going to be looking back on it in 20 years and thinking, holy hell, these were some smooth shots. And it's all thanks to Zhiyun and Sony, which is a fantastic combination, as you can clearly see. You see that? That is portrait mode on the Zhiyun Crane MS3. If I go back into my favorite mode, pan follow, right there. You don't even have to take off the plate to put this gimbal into portrait mode. So you can do all your TikTok, your Instagram, whatever, just with the press of a button. That is fantastic. That's what makes this gimbal my favorite gimbal for the Sony ZV-E1. And why the Sony ZV-E1? Because this camera does everything I need. Everything that my Sony A7S III does. Right here, it's tiny, it's really small, it fits in the palm of my hand. I can take it anywhere. It's a great travel camera. It's a monster in a tiny box. Little quick release plate, slide it on, and boom, you're done. That's it. This gimbal is pre-balanced and it is very, very easy to balance. It has locks on all the motors. So, you know, if you're running around, all you have to do is lock them and, you know, you're done. It's fantastic. It has a little light, so if it gets a little bit dark, you've got a little light. You know, I mean, they have literally thought of everything. If we turn it on, it's got a nice little screen, you know, right there. It's got a little screen, which is a touch screen. So I can go and press auto calibration and I can calibrate it. So how I've balanced it, how I've set it up. So the 50mm G lens on the Sony ZV-E1 with a cage, it's gonna balance every single motor to perfectly tune them in for the actual payload I have there and how it's set up. And in a minute, it will tell me the calibration is successful. And that will mean that every single one of these motors is going to be working how it should be. So now I can take it and I can, you know, do all this kind of jazz and not have to worry about it vibrating or going crazy. How do I use a gimbal with my Sony ZV-E1? Well, it's really simple. It really is. I use it in PF mode, yeah, so pan follow. I don't use any other mode. I don't use the vortex mode. It does have vortex mode. If you want to go into vortex, you can go into vortex and you can spin around like a crazy person. It's just not something I really ever use. I don't use the lock button because I just don't. I'll use pan follow. Sometimes I'll use follow. And I'll have the Sony ZV-E1 in 120 frames per second, just so the footage is really slow, really, let's call it cinematic, but that's how I like it. And another great thing about this being a small little compact setup is that you don't need cables. So if I'm traveling, I forget the cable, I'm like, oh, damn, I have to press the button every time. No, it's got Bluetooth connection. So it's got a little red shutter button here that all you have to do is press. So if I turn on the Sony ZV-E1, you're gonna see that all I have to do is press it and it's recording. Don't know if you guys can see that, but if I pressed it, it records. So I don't have to play around with cables or anything. It just makes my life a lot better. It has a battery which lasts 7.5 to 8 hours and quick PD charging, which is about 2 hours. all these things make my life a lot simpler with a tiny little gimbal like this. I love that the screen is OLED and you can, you know, touch it. You can go into every single option. You can go into mode. So if I want to go into Vortex, I can go into Vortex, and you know, you guys out there, you know, with all your crazy Vortex moves, you can go into that mode. But like I said, I normally just go into pan follow and I'm happy with that mode. Without any problems at all, it handles this setup here. And if I want, and it's late at night, I can even turn on the light, as you can see right there. And that's 10%. This is 100, so it's very, very bright. And I can also change the temperature. Let's turn that off, because that once again, that is something that I don't use a lot because I don't feel comfortable walking around at night with my camera. I feel like someone's gonna mug me. I may not be a small guy, but still, I don't wanna be in the middle of a fight, you know. But if you're somewhere safe, sure, you can use the light following a model or something, what have you. You have the trigger. So if I do want to vlog, by pressing the trigger 3 times, it spins around and looks at me. If I press it again, it's going to spin around and look forward. I can use the wheel to actually turn it. You can change what the wheel does. You can change what the trigger does. It has a little joystick, which is very nice to use. I'm gonna tell you, it's really nice to use. And that is about it. There's really not much more to this gimbal. The previous version, which I have, had a, you know, like extra jacks for audio and a microphone and all this crap that you don't need in a gimbal. A gimbal for a camera this size, I'm not talking something like the DJI RS3 Pro or something like that. I'm talking about a small gimbal with a small camera setup that you can take as a content creator. You can go out there, you can do your TikToks in vertical, and you know, I mean, it is literally everything that you need. And the best thing about it is that it's smooth. It is smooth as hell. The footage I get out of this gimbal is mind-blowingly smooth. I know it's a sponsored video, and I'm being as honest as I possibly can here. I hate that it's white. I wish it was black. That's the only downside. That really is the only downside to this gimbal. But everything that you need from a gimbal, including creative things, because it has creative things. So if we go into settings, we go into advanced features, you've got panorama, time-lapse, motion lapse. It's all in there. It's all in there. Everything you need to be creative is in this gimbal. If you have any questions, if you have any comments about this fantastic little tiny setup, which also has a 1/4-inch expansion port right there, if you want to put on a microphone, whatever you guys do in your spare time, it's there. Comments down below. If you did like my film and it helped you buy one, give me a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed, make sure you do, and you know, ring the bell.